and people like me, other people on YouTube that have been speaking out, you know, for the past 2 years, it seems, if not longer, about what's going on, about how these things that we love are getting destroyed.
Oh, well, imagine as I'm pacing the pews in a church corridor, and I can't help but to hear, no, I can't help but to hear an exchanging of words. What a beautiful wedding, what a beautiful wedding, says a bridesmaid to a waiter. Yes, but what a shame the poor groom's bride is a whore. I chime in with a haven't you people ever heard of closing a goddamn door? No, it's much better to face these kinds of things with a sense of poison rationality. I chime
Oh, hello again. I am Bob Jones of Katerina, and I welcome you to my fine channel once again. I apologize. You caught me snoozing on the job outside of this once fine little village. Don't ask questions. Things will be better if you don't. Okay? Good. All jokes aside, I've been quite busy for the past week, especially since the whole corona beer virus or something like that became the new thing no one will shut up about now. Is it just me, or is this no big deal not even a week ago, and now the mainstream media has declared this is worse than Armageddon? I'm not all that bummed out, really. After all, it was pretty funny watching all you humans maul each other over toilet paper because the TV box told you it was the end of the world. Oh, humanity. Never change. Anyway, I think it's about time for me to be summoned back from the pit of boiling blood and despair to bring the hammer down on a new, unsuspecting target. This is Anna, better known as That Star Wars Girl. Wow, really? That Star Wars Girl? Talk about the most uncreative name imaginable. Kind of like Geeks and Gamers as well. Like, there was barely any effort making that name. I'll give Gary some credit, at least Nerdrotic is a kinda clever play on words. So our homegirl, Anna, is a big fan of Babylon 5, I don't know, something like that. Oh wait, what? Star Wars? Wow, how could I have guessed that? You may think this video is about Star Wars, but no, surprisingly. In fact, there are very few videos on her channel about Star Wars in the first place. That's kinda odd. This video here is about what Henry Cavill said in an interview about The Witcher.
People just kind of give him a hard time and they rag on him despite the fact that he has great intentions. I'm curious if that's comparable to this sort of world, this culture of toxic fandom, where like if you make a movie, especially if you make a superhero movie, you have great intentions, but there are always going to be a small yet vocal group of people there can kind of just be toxic.
I understand what you're saying, but when it comes to fans, it is a fan's right to have whatever opinion they want to have. And people are going to be upset because, especially when you're talking about books or games, because you're never going to be the exact person who they had in their head or who they played on Witcher 3, for example. I don't necessarily consider that toxic. I just consider that passionate. And it's something which I have obviously had to come to terms with over the years. And for me, with the comparison is not like that with Garrett walking into a bar. The comparison is more meta. It's more to do with xenophobia and sexism and colonialism and all those effects that has on people, and then who they divert their fear and energy towards, and that tends to be Geralt, because he's a guy who exists outside of society. He's not part of a group when he walks into town, and he looks so different from everyone else, and no one can control him. He is faster, stronger, better at swords, and apparently can do magic as well. So the last thing you want to do is, you can't control him, and you fear him, and therefore all of your energy, especially in a crowd of people, will be diverted at him because of everything that's happening above you in the world.
Fair enough. Really quick.
So, it's a 1.5 minute long clip that was taken out of a larger interview where the subject of toxic fans came up. Henry Cavill is just plainly asked how he feels about it. He gives a fairly straightforward, neutral, run-of-the-mill answer to the question. The only noticeable quote that is the focus of Anna's video here is, "I wouldn't call that toxic, I'd call it passion."
If that's not a mic drop moment, I don't know what is.
Not really. That's barely a mic drop moment at all. It wasn't anything that special. Kind of a nitpick here, but what is it with all these channels and their habit of showing off huge amounts of nerd memorabilia? It doesn't really come off like I'm a big fan of this. It comes off more as try-hardy. Look at how much nerd stuff I have. I have nerd cred. I'm a real nerd. Don't you see? I'm a real fan. Please take me seriously. Maybe it's just me, but this is really unnecessary.
Hello everyone, it's Anna, also known as That Star Wars Girl, and today we are going to be talking about that beautiful little speech that Henry Cavill just gave. Now, I agree with him wholeheartedly on his sentiments. Now, as far as the whole narrative that's been trying to be played, because obviously the interviewer had a list of questions that they had to ask him, and that obviously was on there as one of the questions that they insisted on bringing up to him.
Oh, what the fuck is that noise? Ew, that sounds awful. Are you okay, Anna? What's with the constant air sucking? Do you have asthma or something? Why did you leave all that in? What, do you think you're just too good for jump cuts? Constant jump cuts is still better than the constant I'm sorry, that's just really distracting, and it never stops. It goes on for the whole video. Speaking of video, how long is this vid? 20 minutes? Oh God, no, you have to be joking right now. No, God, please, no. It can't be just her bitching about a minute-long interview clip for 20 minutes. Please, say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. Oh, whoa. Oh God, it's not a joke at all. It's just Mecha Random 42 all over again. Oh, Anna, your joke is a heartbreaker. Down, down, chicka, chicka, down, down, chicka, chicka, say it ain't so. Sorry. Okay, well, all joking aside, let's not judge a book by its cover. Let's at least sample the contents of this no doubt fine production from our dear old Anna. For the record, I sped up the video 1.5 times because she talks so fucking slowly. And quite frankly, I don't have all day. You'll thank me later, trust me.
The interviewer had a list of questions that they had to ask him, and that obviously was on there as one of the questions that they insisted on bringing up to him, and including the words toxic fandom, because that is something that the mainstream media likes to throw around so loosely now. That fans, we're not fans, it's just toxic fandom. Anyone that has any type of criticism whatsoever gets grouped in that. Oh, you don't like this, you don't immediately agree with everything that we're, putting in front of you, you are a toxic fan.
Wait, huh? The mainstream media throws around the word toxic fandom loosely? Who exactly are you talking about? When I think mainstream media, I think CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, that stuff. But that can't be what you're talking about. So is it the comic book journalism industry as a whole? I find that kind of preposterous. I don't think they would go that far out of their way to actively antagonize their own readers. I personally never saw any evidence for accusations like this outside of out-of-context headlines and cherry-picked quotes, so consider me a bit skeptical.
Look at the way that he's talking about this character. He obviously understands this character and he's done his research on this character. I know for a fact Henry Cavill has read the books because he has talked about it in previous interviews. He has talked about how he religiously played the video game and that, he's a really big fan of, the Witcher video games, the whole franchise of it, the video games, the books, and he was excited to play this character. And he understands it to, a whole nother level than somebody that, is just walking in, oh, it's the Witcher, let me go, take a little quick Google search, do my research on it. It's a very different thing, being a fan of something for years, playing something for years, spending time and, months, if not years, reading books and, learning about this, incorporating that into your life. And the way that he describes this character Geralt and how the society is against him, society fears him because they can't control him. Like he said, there's sexism, there's colonialism, there's xenophobia. And the way that he described this character and the way society is against him, that fans, we're not fans, it's just toxic fandom. Anyone that has any type of criticism whatsoever gets grouped in that. Oh, you don't like this, you don't immediately agree with everything that we're, putting in front of you, you are a toxic fan.
Like, okay, who is saying this? Who has accused you of that just for not agreeing with everything they put in front of you? Anna, I hope you're not tacitly suggesting that the whole toxic fan thing isn't real, 'cause hun, I can tell you for a fact that's nonsense. I was in the Silent Hill fandom for a long time, and I remember Tom Hewlett getting shitloads of death threats over Silent Hill HD collection. Many of them claimed with no real evidence that he single-handedly ruined Silent Hill, even though he had barely anything to do with it. That sure as hell sounds like toxic fandom to me.
Like you said, there's sexism, there's colonialism, there's xenophobia. And the way that he described this character and the way society is against him, I think that coincides perfectly with this interviewer and, the, Access Media trying to bring in toxic fandom and, the toxicity surrounding fandom. And the way Henry Cavill put it was so eloquent. they fear him, they can't control him. He's outside of society, he's not inside this group. I feel like that coincides perfectly with fans.
Whoa! Oh boy, that went from 0 to insanity in like 5 seconds. So, let me summarize. Anna is seriously convinced that nerds are like Geralt. They're just these outsiders who don't belong, and they attract hate because people don't really understand them and can't control them. Which, I mean, that idea is so fucking laughable, I don't even know where to start. First off, you still have yet to nail down who exactly these people are. I heard the Access Media in there somewhere. Wait a minute, Access Media? Gee, where have I heard that before?
We are talking about the members of the Access Media.
Interesting. So I've been told that the Access Media are people who get exclusive first access to upcoming movies and other stuff in order to review and therefore promote it. I do acknowledge that these people are far more likely to be biased in favor of the company. That's pretty obvious. But at the same time, I don't view it as a big deal. Mostly due to the fact that these critics are still just giving their opinion at the end of the day. And even if they're biased, it's not like they could straight up lie to your face. They're more likely to be forgiving toward it, but if they were a good critic, they would describe in detail precisely what happened so you can judge for yourself. Even considering all of that, the Access Media is still not all that well defined. So is it literally everyone who is given early access? Or is it just certain people who have skewered opinions from the start that are the problem? Is it certain news outlets that have agendas that are the problem? That would be incredibly foolish because everybody has an agenda. But my main point is, I don't really know who you're directing your anger towards.
You know, fans, you know, nerds, nerdom, fandom, geekdom, whatever you want to call it. I feel like until recently, it wasn't mainstream, you know, we were our own kind of little thing. It didn't exist before where everyone had access like this, and then now all of a sudden everyone is an expert on everything because we have this thing called Google, and anyone can go on Google and you can spend an hour and you can know everything about a Marvel character, about a DC character, about a video game character, a book character. And one of the things that I think people in the Access Media, people in Hollywood are so threatened by fans is because we've done this for years. We know this. These characters, these things we care about, whether it be Doctor Who, whether it be Star Wars, whether it be Lord of the Rings, whether it be Witcher, whether it be superheroes. We are so passionate about it. We will defend it. We will sit there and watch every scrap of content on it because we love it, because we can't get enough of it. It is in our blood. For me, something like Star Wars has been with me since I was a very, very young child. It is a part of who I am. And when I saw something like The Last Jedi, when I, opened my eyes and saw everything that was happening with Star Wars, with the people that were running it, with them seeing valid criticisms and saying, no, that's not a valid criticism, you're a toxic incel man baby.
Whoa, Anna, sweetie pie, slow down. What are you even talking about at this point? I don't remember Henry Cavill mentioning any of this. So, fans are like outsiders, and the media is scared of fans because they know a lot about nerdy stuff, and everyone's an expert now because of Google and... I'm sorry, what? What the fuck are you talking about? This sounds like just mindless rambling. Keep in mind that Henry Cavill mentioned Geralt being an outsider, mostly just a pivot from toxic fans to a new topic. Watch this again.
I don't necessarily consider that toxic. I just consider that passionate. And it's something which I have obviously had to come to terms with over the years. And for me, with the comparison is not like that with Geralt walking into a bar. The comparison is more meta. It's more to do with xenophobia and sexism and colonialism and all those effects that has on people, and then who they divert their fear and energy towards, and that tends to be Geralt, because he's a guy who exists outside of society. He's not part of a group when he walks into town, and he looks so different from everyone else, and no one can control him.
See? That was a pretty obvious pivot. He never said the fans are similar to Geralt. He was just acknowledging that big fans are not going to be happy with the character because that's not what they see in their head. Anna is basically pulling shit out of her ass. Especially the whole toxic incel man baby crap. You expect me to believe that a public figure would viciously insult the majority of their audience like that? I can't imagine what kind of evidence you have to justify that accusation. Are you really going to suggest that all of the criticism against The Last Jedi was valid? Even the whole, this is anti-SJW, cultural Marxist, feminist, soy boy propaganda that pushes an agenda that's anti-white, anti-male, and anti-Western culture. Oh yeah, that's not toxic. That's just passion. Sure.
You are, you're not contributing anything. None of your criticisms are valid. And it's like, no, I'm trying to explain to you that what you're doing is actually wrong. You don't understand the way hyperspace travel works. You don't understand how the Force works. How do you not understand how training works in the Force? That, Luke Skywalker, just go look at the previous source material that you purchased. Go look at how when Luke Skywalker was training in the Force, he wasn't even a Jedi, a fully trained Jedi yet, and he could sense that that Leia was in danger. Luke could sense that. He could sense that Han was in danger. And you're telling me that he couldn't sense that Han Solo died? He couldn't feel that? You're telling me this guy that had such faith, that was such an optimistic character, that had someone like Darth Vader, his father, a guy that was so far down the path of the dark side that nobody else believed he could come back, but Luke Skywalker believed in him. You're telling me that guy was the guy that was going to kill his nephew for having a bad dream? That's not Luke Skywalker. That's not who he is. That doesn't make sense. You're telling me, telling you that is not a valid criticism. That's me being toxic. It doesn't make sense. And the way that Henry Cavill describes...
Okay, so at this point, she's completely jumped the shark. This has barely anything to do with the topic of the video. I love how this Star Wars rant came completely out of left field just to half-assedly justify that people actually had critique towards The Last Jedi. Yes, Anna, people didn't like the movie for valid reasons. Okay, we get it. But that doesn't mean toxic asshole fans with completely unreasonable opinions don't exist. Why are you attempting to play apologetics for these people? What will you gain out of this? Why is it so hard to acknowledge that certain small groups of fans can be complete pieces of shit? That shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. If you're so adamant that you are not a toxic fan, why do you get so personally offended when people talk about it? It doesn't apply to you, so you shouldn't care. Acknowledging that toxic assholes can exist in a fandom is not fucking sacrilege.
This fear that people have for this character, I think it coincides beautifully with the way that Hollywood and the access media have fear of the fandom because they can't control us. We in America, we have this thing called freedom of speech. We have the internet. Yes, the internet allows you to go Google and, become an expert on something in, a matter of hours. You can go Google anything and you can learn about it. You can learn anything on the internet nowadays. But the thing that the internet, doesn't really give you is just because you go read something doesn't give you the passion. It doesn't give you, the years worth of experience on something. And people like me, other people on YouTube that have been speaking out, for the past 2 years, it seems, if not longer, about what's going on, about how these things that we love are getting destroyed. And we're speaking out on that, and they can't stand it. They're afraid of us. They're labeling us toxic fans.
I am 99% certain that situation has never happened. If you are so fixated on that victim narrative you're desperately trying to push, well then prove it. Put your money where your mouth is, Anna, and prove to me that happens. You don't get to just sit there and play the victim flute for days on end. Show some fucking evidence for your arguments, because all I see you doing is virtue signaling. Look at me! Look at me! I don't think all fans are toxic. I'm a good person. I'm a good nerd ally. Screw all those evil media outlets who call us man-baby incels. They aren't real fans. Please like me. That's a spicy bit of irony, isn't it?
And to hear someone like Henry Cavill defend it, say, no, it's not toxicity. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. Everyone loves this. And, yeah, we're not going to please everyone. But you have to understand that people are only speaking out about it. People are, they feel this way. They feel so passionately about it because they care. It's so refreshing to hear someone in this circle say that. I haven't seen anyone else speak out about it, but everyone else just seems to say, get on the whole boat of, oh, you're toxic. But I've been a big fan of Henry Cavill for a really long time. He's in one of my favorite movies. It was back when he was really young, before, he was an A-list celebrity. I would say it was the movie I love that movie. He was Edward Donovan's son in that movie. And that was before Man of Steel. That was before he was Superman. And I've seen lots of interviews that he's done, and Henry Cavill actually is a nerd. He's a hardcore nerd. He's a hardcore nerd. He loves this kind of stuff. And I think that's why he gets it. He understands fandom because he's one of us. When you compare him to someone like Brie Larson or someone like Daisy Ridley, those are women that, Brie Larson, I don't think she'd ever read it. I think she said it in interviews, she found out she was going to get the part, then she was starting to read the comics, then she was starting to learn about the character. This wasn't a character that she grew up loving, that she grew up knowing. This wasn't something that was in her for a long time, that she was a fan of this character. No, it was something she got a job, and then she started learning about the character.
Man, you could just Google something and become an expert at it, but it doesn't give you the passion, man. It's all about the passion, dog. That's why the lamestream media is afraid of us, man. They can't control us, man. We don't conform to the man. Dude. This is all especially funny when you realize that trying to paint all of your opposition as not real fans is, ironically, exactly what a toxic fan would do. That's really funny, Anna. These people are not like me. They don't understand that they're destroying our favorite franchise. I'm not making that up. She seriously said it was being destroyed. Star Wars is being destroyed.
about what's going on, about how these things that we love are getting destroyed.
Wow, that's definitely not something a toxic fan would say. Oh, dear Lord. Okay, different approach here. I have a different approach for this one. So, I think you're starting to see Anna's biggest problem front and center. She's insanely insecure. Listen to the way she talks. She said he's one of us.
I think that's why he gets it. He understands fandom because he's one of us.
One of us. He's one of us. That's some really creepy cultish language there. Not even that. She's also incredibly angry at a nondescript group of people who insult another poorly defined group of people that she desperately tries to prove she isn't a part of. The whole victim narrative of the mainstream media being against them and they can't control us, so they fear us. Like, this is not how a normal fan acts. Nobody who's a fan of something would ever say things like this. No one should ever be this insecure about the things they like. Even mega fans of something have thicker skin than this. I think these kinds of statements feed into a much bigger problem overall. Insecurity breeds anger and resentment, which eventually turns into hostility, and hostility leads to toxicity. Why do you think lots of incels are so vicious and hateful? It's because they let their innermost insecurity get the better of them. Nerds were always the punching bag for a lot of years, to the point where they get picked on for liking certain stuff. Which is fucked up. That's not cool. But now, since nerd culture is so pervasive now, they feel like their little hobby has been infiltrated by the bullies who used to pick on them. That explains a lot of the purity testing you might get and the "you're not a real fan" comments. Do you ever wonder why toxic nerds get compared to incels? Well, I have a theory. I think it's because they do have some unsettling similarities. Now follow me here. Insecurity towards who they are and what they like respectively. Incel groups do also face many of the same infighting that toxic fans do. Although, I will say that toxic fans are much preferable to incels. Nobody ever killed someone over a Star Wars movie. At least, I hope that never happened. Whoo boy. Sorry for the long diatribe there, but that's all I could really come up with so this video isn't 1,000 hours long. Anna doesn't say anything of note beyond this point, so I'll just end it here. That's enough bullshit for one video, don't you think? I hope I made all my points well. This one was more in-depth than I've done in a while. I'm all Bob Jones, and I'll see you next time.
Are you here with me? Just looking out on the day of another dream, where you can't get what you want, but you can get me.